If I asked you for what the top argument is why we have to allow abortion, like, but what in the case of dot dot dot, what would be there? What would fill in those blanks there, guys? Everybody knows the instant answer to that: rape. The cases of incest and rape, especially. What about a woman who's been raped? Why should she be forced to carry that child? The child of her rapist, okay? That's what we're going to be addressing today. Now, right off the bat, I'm just going to be honest and say I am 100% pro-life. So anytime I've been faced with this issue before of, well, what about rape? My answer has been very basic. Like, I've never been raped, okay? And never become pregnant from it. But automatically my answer would be, well, obviously, all you're doing is making a second victim. Okay, that's kind of my easy go-to. If a woman is raped, which is horrible, right? And then she goes and has an abortion, well, you haven't fixed anything. The woman hasn't been unraped, okay? She's still going to be traumatized from the rape. All you've done is create a second victim now by killing the baby, okay? So that's pretty much what my instant response would be. But in order to do this video, I started doing a lot more research and digging a lot deeper into the issue of pregnancy due to rape. And I'm going to be sharing that info with you guys today so that we are dealing with facts, we're dealing with stories from real women, so we can know what we're basing our stance on when we say, you know, should cases of rape be allowed to have abortions, okay? So let's get straight into it. Okay, first off, let's start with some cold hard facts, okay? Fact, even planned, I don't know if I'm even allowed to say it these days, you know, the abortion mills, okay? Even they admit that less than 1% of the abortions that they perform are on victims of rape. So it's not like you have masses of women beating down the doors of the abortion mills trying to get abortions, okay? That's what they act like, you know, with the leftist pro-choice movement. But you don't have masses of raped women going to get abortions. Even they admit, less than 1% of the clientele that they have is due to rape. Okay, let's go over a few more facts real quick, okay? There's only been 2 studies that were done of women who became pregnant from rape. I believe one was from the 80s and one was from the 90s, something like that, okay? But at any rate, 2 studies done of women who became pregnant from rape. Did you know that a shocking 70% of rape victims refuse the option of abortion and never regret it? 70%. And actually that's a conservative number because the other numbers I was looking at was upwards of 73 to 75, up to even 80% of women. But conservatively speaking, if you want to be conservative with the numbers, 70% of rape victims automatically refuse abortion, period. Now, of those 70% who rejected abortion as an option, did you know that there were 0 cases where they regretted choosing life? 0 cases where they regretted choosing life for their babies. Now, sometimes they put them up for adoption. A small percentage of women put up the child for adoption after, you know, going full term. The rest of the women kept their babies. But either way, none of them regretted choosing life. Now, we can't say the same for the other side of the aisle. The 30% of women who did choose abortion, there are stories after stories of women who were raped. They chose abortion and they deeply regretted it for the rest of their lives. In fact, the second study that I was referencing at the beginning here, the second study that was done looked at those 30% of rape victims who chose abortion. And of those 30%, okay, 78%, and actually sometimes it was upwards of that, that's a conservative number as well, 78% of the 30% who chose abortion, 78% of those women said that they deeply regretted their abortion. It is not the answer to abortion, and that they wish that they would have made a different choice. And when we're looking at this topic of rape, they've also found in the studies that the women who chose life actually had a better psychological outcome as far as their healing and their mental well-being when they chose life as opposed to those who chose abortion. So these are very startling statistics that we're dealing with, guys, okay? Very startling statistics, because the left would have you think that, there's a million, all these women who have been raped, they're all banging down the doors of the abortion mill, and that we can't deny them this, and that they need this, or else we're going to be scarring them for life if we don't let them have abortions, okay? But the statistics are looking a lot different than that, aren't they? Now, I'm going to share with you some true life stories, okay, of women who were brutally raped, okay? Sometimes it was a case of incest, and sometimes it was somebody that they didn't know, okay? And I'm going to share some stories from those actual, in their own words, these women who were raped, they became pregnant, and we're going to hear from them what happened, if they chose life or didn't, if they regretted it or didn't. Because if we're going to be kind of like tackling this issue, we need to hear it out of their own words, okay? All of the stories that I'm going to be sharing I'm going to list the websites where I got this information in the description, or you can look in the comments. It'll be in one or both of those spots, so that you can check it out for yourself to back up what I'm sharing with you. Okay, I'm going to start with this story, guys. I'm going to try to put it on the screen so you guys can see and read along if you'd like, but I will be reading it to you. This story is of a woman who was brutally assaulted by her boyfriend, and she became pregnant from it. She was ashamed, very ashamed about what happened, and didn't know what to do. Her friends advised her to get an abortion and pressured her to do that, and so did everybody else in her life, basically. And of course, even the people who were supposed to be helping her in some of the clinics and stuff that she went to. So she finally decided to have the abortion, so that's where we're picking up, okay? She had already, let's see. Oh, anyway, I went back to the room and I took the pill, obviously the abortion pill, and left in a hurry, and just tried to blank out what I was doing. And I went on about my business for the next 2 days. I went back to the hospital 2 days later. I don't know what I was expecting, really, but it was quite shocking to me. I was in a lot of pain and I was extremely stressed. I recall I was crying mostly the whole time, and a nurse said to me, "Don't worry, it's quite normal to cry, and you might cry for quite some time afterwards. That's quite normal, it's just what happens." And I was thinking, well, why? This is supposed to be the good and responsible and right thing to do. Why would it make me cry endlessly? Why? Surely I should be glad, because all my problems are going to be over soon. But of course, that's not the reality at all. That was a lie. And then I'm going to skip down some, because her story is amazing. You got to read the whole thing sometimes. But she said, afterwards, there was this horrific knowledge that a baby has just passed away. It's passed outside your body, and where is it? That is something that is absolutely harrowing to me. Where is that baby? I don't know, and I will never know. After the abortion, I went home, and I tried to act like normal, because apparently I was going to feel like all my problems would come to an end. Now I can get on with my life. So I tried that, which lasted about 5 minutes. I felt physical pain from the distress of it all. I was literally heartbroken. I had this horrendous pain in my chest, and I was so anxious all the time. I felt grief, like the most precious thing to me had just died, which is exactly what had happened. And it's very difficult to grieve from an abortion, because obviously you have chosen it to some degree. So I almost felt like a hypocrite, grieving like I should be glad. I've been told to be glad, but the reality was I just did not want to do that. I grieved for that baby, and still do, and probably will forevermore. I drank quite a lot, and I took a lot of painkillers, and sometimes I drank so much and took such a lot of painkillers in order that I wouldn't wake up. And I prayed every night, even though I wasn't terribly religious at the time. I prayed every night that God would take me away and that I would die. And I am skipping down a bit, but basically she had to come to Christ and receive forgiveness, and that's when she finally started to heal. And she says right here, abortion is not the answer. Abortion just takes away your child. You are still mother, but you are a grieving one. And then she says, I've heard people who claim to be pro-life say, I don't agree, apart from in the case of rape. When I hear people say that, it literally stabs me in the heart. Abortion did not work for me. It did not heal the abuse that I experienced. It actually made me live within that abuse situation for a lot longer, because I relived it. After the abortion, I relived that conception over and over again. It was the absolute worst possible outcome for me. I've made some really good friends who have conceived children in rape, and they have had their children. They love their children. Those children are in fact their child, and my child was my child. It was his child as well, but that would not define my child. When I talk about my living children, I don't say my husband's children, I call them my own, because they are in fact mine. It sounds very obvious, but for somebody who's defending abortion because of rape, it almost implies that the child is 100% the rapist's child. We need to think about punishing rapists. The baby does not deserve the death penalty because of what their parent has done. And I have to continue with her story. She said, I also have a friend who was conceived in rape. She does not call herself a rapist's child. She is a child of God and has value and worth for the beautiful person she is. She has a husband and a family, and she is glad for her life. She says it herself, I love my life. Of course, why wouldn't she? She is just a person like any other person. What the father has done does not define the rest of that child's life. Abortion does not heal rape. Please listen to this, guys. Abortion does not heal rape. It just leaves the mother with another horrific, devastating experience to try to come to terms with, on top of the fact that she has been raped. It's almost too much to take for many women, and it nearly was for me. Here's another story. Survivor calls her daughter conceived in rape her lovely little girl. People at my church stood by me, supported and helped me, and now I have this lovely little girl, Robin, that God has allowed to be my daughter. That's that lady's testimony, okay? Here's another one. I was 15, raped and pregnant. I, now 21 years later, have a happy, healthy 21-year-old son. My son did nothing wrong. He was just as much a victim of the rape as I was. He didn't ask for what happened to me any more than I did. I would never let myself turn from victim to killer. I could never live with myself if I killed a baby, my baby no less. All that mattered to me was that he was half mine, and I was going to do everything I could to give him the best life possible. He is a blessing, not a curse, and he helped me heal from the rape, not relive it every day of my life. You know what heals? Love is what heals, and there is no greater love than that of a mother for her child. He is my pride and joy. We made it work. And here's a story from a 15-year-old girl who was gang raped by a bunch of guys and became pregnant and was pressured to having an abortion. She chose life. This is her words. She says, was it difficult raising my rapist's baby? At first it was, because that's all I could see. I couldn't get past what happened to me. But once I saw the sonograms, and once I started to feel him move inside of me, and once I gave birth, all that basically went away. Because just the feeling of love that sweeps over you, it just was remarkable. And I don't think for 1 second aborting him would have done me any good, because it wouldn't have stopped the fact that I had been raped. It wouldn't have changed the fact that I was only a young teenager. It wouldn't have changed anything. My message to girls out there and people who say, what if she's raped, or what if it's incest, or what if it's something unspeakable? Well, you know what? The baby doesn't deserve the death penalty for something else, something somebody else did. And 90% of the time it's rape. It's not incest, it's convenience. Sorry, it's not rape, it's not incest, it's convenience. These are her words in regards to her situation. And she sums it up, she says, it baffles my mind that we are in such a cancel culture, that we can just cancel the life of a child because it's inconvenient for us at the time. And that's what people were trying to get me to do. Use the fact that I was raped and use all those horrible, terrible things that happened to me to scare me into deleting a part of my life. That he's so amazing. This same 15-year-old girl, when asked how she would respond to those who wanted to silence her voice, why was it important to listen to the stories of survivors? She said this, the pro-choice claim is it's cruel and unusual punishment to make me raise my rapist baby. It's not, though. For starters, that baby is half you. That baby is half of your flesh and blood. That baby is half you. You don't have to think of the baby as your rapist's baby, for starters. And everybody should be able to hear both sides of the story. Yes, I was raped. Does my son deserve to die for the choice somebody else made? And the answer is no. The baby inside of me is not my body, and it's just inside of my body. The baby has its own DNA. It has its own heartbeat. It has its own blood type. It is its own person. The baby has every single right to the same rights and freedoms as we have, as a toddler has that's walking around. And she was actually told by the doctors that her kid was going to be very deformed, and that things weren't developing correctly, and that it was cruel for her to choose life, in addition to the fact that, her psychological well-being or whatever, right, because of being raped. And she ignored all of that, and her baby was born completely fine with no defects or problems. Now here's a story from a different girl in a case of incest. I believe her father had raped her, and she ended up getting pregnant from it and being pressured to have an abortion, so she did. So let's read her story. So 2 weeks after her abortion, she says, 2 weeks went by, and that's when I started feeling the loss. I cried a lot. I just made the worst mistake of my life. I ended my baby's life, my own child. My life felt like a living hell at that point. My heart was hurting so bad that I wished I would have died there with my child. I couldn't go to work without drinking first. Still to this day I cry and deeply mourn the loss of my child. Nothing has hurt me more than knowing that I killed my baby. I was supposed to be there to protect him. I wanted him in my life so much, but I was a coward and took the easy way out. I can't stand myself for the decision that I made. That's why I wrote this article. If you are pregnant because of rape or incest and you are lost, then please take the story to heart. You never know what you will miss or how you will feel afterwards. I am simply trying to save mothers and their babies. It's just like this, guys. There's story after story after story of women who choose life or women who chose abortion and deeply regretted it. Okay, here's another story. I'm just going to share a couple more, guys, so you can get a good idea of what we're dealing with here. This is a woman who became pregnant after rape. She said, in such cases as mine, it is considered a tragedy rather than an act of love or nobility that I choose to keep my baby. I've rubbed my belly countless nights telling my baby how much I love her. I've tried to tell her she is beautiful and innocent and is a precious blessing to me and her brothers and sisters. I was one of those people who would have said in cases of rape, I could understand a rape victim wanting an abortion. I never understood how hurtful that statement was until I became pregnant because of rape. My rapist has enjoyed freedom, living a life filled with freedom, He's been able to work and pay his bills. He's been able to enjoy his family and his life comfortably. So why would my baby not be entitled to enjoy the same luxuries, to enjoy life? I didn't want or need an abortion. I wanted and needed real, tangible help. And I thank God for my support system who has abundantly blessed me and my baby upon her birth. I want the baby to know she was a choice. Really, it shouldn't have been my choice to say that her life was worth less because it wasn't worth any less than mine. I want her to know I loved her despite how angry I was that she was put inside of me without my knowledge or consent. I want her to know that she has no part in any of the ugliness surrounding her conception, and that she should never feel any shame. I want her to grow up knowing and professing that a beautiful life is possible, even through horrible circumstances. Okay, and this is the final story I'm going to share real quick, okay? This woman was brutally raped and became pregnant and saw her baby on an ultrasound at 6 weeks. She said, I saw a little dot, and it flickered, and I knew what that was. And for the first time since I had been raped, I felt that light inside me again. And I smiled because that little flicker on the screen to me was hope and joy and light. At a moment where everything was so dark and so painful, I remember thinking that I couldn't protect myself. I fought and I tried, but I couldn't. But on that screen there, that little guy blinking at me with that tiny, tiny heart, him I could protect. I called my husband and I said, are you sitting down? I'm pregnant. He said, this baby is something beautiful from something so terrible and painful. He said, we can do this. And I said, okay, we can do this. We had so many doctors and nurses tell us, you do not want this. You do not want a child from rape. You will always have this reminder hanging over your head, this reminder if you keep it. And they say it. They don't call it a child because then it's real. They don't want to make it real. If you keep it, you will never be able to move on. You will never be able to forget, they said. Guess what? No woman is ever going to forget what happened to her. Whether she has the baby or doesn't, you are changed forever, and that's just a fact. But it doesn't mean that you can't become a better person than you were before. My son is a reminder that good can come from evil every time. He is a reminder that love is always stronger than hate. He is a reminder that we who become as human beings is not determined by how we start. Something that I wanted to mention was pro-choice researcher Gloria Zakus has said that as a victim of trauma like incest or rape, the abortion procedure can be particularly traumatic. Now, this is the pro-choice researcher saying this, okay? That when somebody has been the victim of incest or rape, that having the act of an abortion done on you is extra traumatic, okay? She says that those women are prone to consciously or unconsciously associating this procedure with previous aggressive violations. So much for that helping. Hear me when I say this. We are not helping women who have survived rape and become pregnant. We're not helping when we advocate for abortion. On the contrary, these stories are telling me that God sometimes provides this special little thing called a baby to help someone who has survived rape. It helps them to heal from this heinous act that was done against them. Do not let pro-choicers bully you, okay, with the idea that those who have survived rape need abortions. No, they don't need abortions. They need love and help and encouragement, but they don't need abortion. This 13-year-old who was raped and then had her baby, she sums it up nicely, okay? When she was interviewed, they asked her, why did she make the decision to have the child? She was only 13 herself. Why did she make the decision to have the child when she was just a girl, herself? Who had lived through one of the arguably the worst circumstances that there are. She said she would never pass on the violence that was perpetrated against her to her unborn child. Now that is the strength of a woman. That's a feminist response. That is actually a feminist response, okay? That is a strong woman. She is not going to let what happened to her dictate how she treats the human who is now inside of her. There are countless stories, guys. Like, I stayed awake for hours the last few nights just reading stories of these women, okay? Countless story after story after story of rape survivor who became pregnant, who chose life, and they would not trade that baby for anything. So the majority of stories all point to one conclusion, guys. Yes, rape is atrocious. Nobody would argue that. No, abortion is not the answer. In most cases, the birth of their baby after conceiving through rape is the thing that helped them truly heal and find joy and meaning in life again. And the rape survivors have said to stop using them to support the abortion agenda when you've never even asked a woman who has been raped. So let's stop capitulating to those wanting to keep abortion legal, and let's start listening to their top excuse for abortion, the survivors of rape who became pregnant from their assault. Let's listen to those women. If you or someone you know is pregnant from rape, don't listen to those who pressure you to have an abortion. Be strong, ask for help, and even the statistics show, save your baby, okay? Put it up for adoption or keep your baby yourself, okay? The baby is not a curse. The baby is God's blessing on you to help you get through this heinous thing that has happened to you. I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. There's so much more that I could include in this video that I wish that I could share with you, but it would just take so long for me to sit here and read to you all the stories of women who went through the most atrocious thing that you could pretty much on this earth, became pregnant, and then they have such joy and peace and love because of this little baby that they've got inside of them now. So abortion, not the answer. We're not helping women. Okay, so don't listen to the left when they try to push you into being making those capitulations like, well, I guess in the case of rape, because the women themselves have said, stop using us as an excuse for abortion because we choose life and that's actually better.